everyone, I'm Allie with PotomacBeads, and in this Better Beader episode, we're going to talk about beading surfaces. This is going to depend on what type of beading you're doing and what I would recommend purchasing or looking for or making yourself when it comes to a surface to bead on. Different beading surfaces are going to make you faster at your craft and also more efficient. So we'll go over that as well. Also, make sure to let me know exactly what your favorite beading material is below in the comments, and also what type of beading you do. You may switch between different boards or different surfaces in order to do different styles of beading, which is what I do as well. So we'll go over a lot of those options here in this Better Beader episode. So the first surface that I want to talk about is just your traditional bead board. Now we carry the bead board here in that 32 inches. You can make a nice long necklace. And you can see in the picture of the advertisement, just of the package itself, that this is a flocked, meaning that it has a little bit of almost a softness to it. I think that's really, really important. So if you're doing just basic jewelry, basic stringing, crimping, making anything that doesn't require super, super small beads, this is where I would consider purchasing or having a bead mat on hand. In addition to this bead mat being great, or this bead board being great because it has measurements on it, which I have a whole Better Beader episode on that if you want to check that out. Again, I would recommend always getting that flocked surface. If you have just that thin plastic, usually from craft stores, that it is not flocked and it's just a regular plastic, your beads kind of roll all over. So when you're looking for a good design bead board, I would go for one like this, whether or not it's straight or whether or not it's this U channel. I like the U channel, and we sell the U channel because I like to see how it's going to look in that form, kind of draped around my neck. This is for basic beading. In addition to basic beading, when you're doing the stringing, stretchy bracelets, anything like that, I always recommend also just having a regular bead mat. So this is just your regular kind of Velux surface here. And I actually prefer to put this underneath my bead board. So I'll put this on top of it as I'm working. No matter what surface we're talking about, you want to think about the fact that your beads are going to jump and roll. Whether or not you're trying it or not, it's going to happen. So make sure whatever surface you are working on, you have plenty of room, that it's not going to go somewhere that you can't get to it. Think like working in a car, you can't get that bead below the seat and you really need that last bead to work. What you're going to look for is a surface, so that way if a bead does happen to jump from your bead board or your bead mat, that it has a surface to fall onto. These regular just Velux bead mats, whether or not you get a larger one like this or even just the small bead mats, are super, super, super handy and helpful. I actually take the bigger ones and I cut them in half rather than the 8x8, so you can do the same thing. And you can even cut this down into little sections and little squares to work in. When I'm working on anything other than necklaces, so if I'm talking about crimping, designing, I'm gonna take my beads, lay them out. Bracelets, I love to actually work and figure out exactly where my beads are going to go, line them up, get ready for stringing, and kind of play with them on the design mat here rather than the actual board. Necklaces, I find the board super helpful, but bracelets, even though there's a bracelet section on that bead board, I find that it's easier just to do them right on my bead mat surface. In addition to this Velux surface then, there's another thing that you might consider getting or working with, and it is a tacky or sticky bead mat. So this tacky or sticky bead mat is really beneficial for smaller beads when you're working on them. On the back you can see kind of that wildfire needle case and then some smaller beads here. This is ideal for travel, in my opinion. Because again, like I was talking, if you're on a plane, you're in a car, you're kind of going from one place to another, sitting on a bus or a train, all things that move, of course. You can use the sticky bead mat to help you, so that way the beads don't bounce if you are moving or traveling. The sticky bead mat comes in different sizes as well, and I think the best thing about it, think of it as kind of that window cling. So you can think about window cling adhesive if you want to. It has a little bit of a groove surface, but it holds those smaller beads in place, so if you are traveling or moving, they're not going to jump up as you might hit bumps or some turbulence. So that's when I would think about using a sticky bead mat. The sticky bead mat, however, I'm always going to want to use in conjunction with either a bead mat or with a bead board. You can take your bead mat if you want to and put it into, say, a picture frame and kind of create your own bead board that's transportable, or you can take it with you as well. That's going to be another way, whether or not you're doing basic stringing or seed beading with thread and needle, to work with the sticky mat as well as just the regular bead mat. Another beading surface that you may want to invest in and think, especially if you do travel or kind of move around a lot, I like to bead in my lap as I'm sitting and working or reclined. So this is ideal for me, is that there's the BeadOnIt boards. And the BeadOnIt boards are going to have a bumper that goes the whole way around. And you kind of have to decide which shape of BeadOnIt board you want and you want to utilize. Whether or not you love the rounded shape or the rectangle, more of the square 6x6, again, just traveling. I like to use these BeadOnIt boards in conjunction with, if I'm traveling, you can use your sticky bead mat. You can also use smaller mats cut inside to create little surfaces and little work areas. And you want to think about what you're using and where you're beading, because other than lighting, your surface is very, very important. Do I like to bead constantly when I'm sitting down? Then I probably want a flat surface to go against me. I don't want that rounded one. Do I have a big area on a table? I may even think about getting the 11x17 or having a nice workspace. I like to have more than one project going on a time. If I keep myself limited to a smaller space, it forces me actually to be a little bit cleaner and neater. This is the dragon skin here, and the dragon scale is green, so it kind of disappears. But if I keep myself to this BeadOnIt board, to different surfaces and to different kind of limits, and say, all right, I'm just using this for one project, that's great. Think about whether or not you're getting a BeadOnIt board, or if you're just doing a regular bead mat, or even if you just want the sticky mat on top of the bead mat, or even you're just doing crimping and basic beading and you're looking at like a flocked U-channel board. How are you beading? Where are you beading? And what kind of versatility do you want while you're beading? That's going to help to determine which surface you want, because you're going to know which ways you're beading and what you're using. I know there's a ton of beading surface options, whether or not they're wood boards that you design on, they're the plastic flocked boards like the regular design boards. If you're using a BeadOnIt board, a rounded, a square, a rectangle, a half moon, if you want that sticky bead mat in addition to just the regular bead mats here, think about, again, how you're beading, where you're beading, and what is comfortable for you. If you know that you have just one bead table, you don't take it with you, you have that nice working surface, you may want to have additional bead mats. You can even do a cafeteria tray style. Get that at the dollar store, stick your bead mat in it, and then you can stack them one on top of the other to have completed projects. Again, let me know your different tips and techniques, as well as this beading community, by adding your feedback in those comment sections below. With that being said, if you're doing basic beading where you're just crimping and you're doing basic stringing and stretchy strings, I would recommend always, always, always to have a bead mat handy. You can then grab your BeadOnIt board, your flock channel, to help to get you that design, but really that bead mat surface, in my mind, is essential. You don't want to be beading on a towel or beading on a blanket that sometimes has a higher pill or a higher surface, and what's going to happen, especially if you're using wire or needles, they're going to get trapped in there. When I'm doing wire working, I actually love my BeadOnIt board, and I stick so that way all of those different scraps don't kind of get caught in there, and I don't get any copper or any metal on my surface of my bead board. I actually stick a bead mat into my BeadOnIt board because I still like that rigid exterior surface so my beads don't kind of jump away and disappear. There's, again, a ton of options. You can kind of make your own, you can purchase them, you can get a Velux blanket, kind of cut it apart, you can get a bead mat and just cut that into sections that fit your work style and your work habits, but really know what type of beading you want. Know what is going to be your most versatile product that you can get if you don't want to get a lot. And also, are you likely to travel with it, not travel? Are you in a motorhome that you want to take down to Florida for the winter? Or are you stationary on a work table? You may want to have different work surfaces for different work areas, but if you're looking for an all-in-one, super inexpensive investment, get yourself a bead mat. Whether or not it's the smaller 8x8s or the bigger 8x14s, the bead mat will make you a much more efficient and faster beader. It's a really, really, really inexpensive investment, and that can be used then as your starting block. From there, once you learn the techniques, what you love to do and what type of beading, then you go in and you look a little bit more for an investment like one of the BeadOnIt boards, or even adding in that sticky bead mat and multiple maybe beading surfaces again. I have floating around my house probably about 8 BeadOnIt boards in varying sizes and varying designs. Here in the studio, I have one big the 11 by 17 that I have on my working surface. And then every once in a while, I'll grab a bead board if I am working on a simple stringing necklace design. So I kind of have them all, but I've been beading for years and collecting and collecting and collecting and trying and using things out. So again, if you need help on the bead mat, the bead board, you need suggestions for the BeadOnIt, what size is going to work for you, go ahead and ask questions, and we're happy to answer those and look through the comments below. As always, these Better Beader episodes really are designed to make you a better beader and be more informed. Maybe you didn't know that all of these different surfaces worked or that these surfaces even existed, but these Better Beader episodes are there to educate you. If this is your first Better Beader episode, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and look at all the different past Better Beader episodes, again made to make you better at your craft. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out any of these beading surfaces, look at the links below to shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu.